Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm My Big Blaze and today we're diving into the Balance Druid Mythic Plus guide for patch 11.1.5. In this video, I'll be breaking down everything you need to know to step up your Boomkin game, from talents and stat priorities to playstyle tips, gear, trinkets, and some key tricks that will help you push higher keys with confidence. Balance Druid is in a really strong spot right now in Mythic Plus, bringing massive AoE, top tier utility, and of course that sweet celestial laser beam chaos we all love. But before we get into it, if you find this guide helpful, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any future content. It helps the channel out a ton and let me keep bringing you guides like this one. Alright, let's get into it. Let's talk about talents. When it comes to hero talents, you've got two options, Keeper of the Grove and Elune's Chosen. Both are viable for Mythic Plus, but here is the breakdown. Keeper of the Grove tends to perform better in lower keys thanks to its burst and control. Elune's Chosen really start to shine in higher keys, especially when fights last longer and the scaling kicks in. My personal recommendation, swap to Elune's Chosen once you're doing keys around 12 or higher. But that said, if you enjoy it, you can absolutely play it at any level. I've included Keeper of the Grove loadout in the description if you want to give it a try, especially in lower keys. For the rest of the guide, I'll be assuming you're using Elune's Chosen, so just keep that in mind. Now for the Spec talents. This setup is pretty straightforward and it works well across all dungeons. These are the talents I personally run and they are great all around choice. That said, I do recommend you take a few minutes to review the tree and understand how the talents synergize, especially if you're aiming to push higher keys. I also touch on a few key talents interaction later in the playstyle section, so stick around for that. This loadout is also linked in the description. Now for the class talents that are a little more flexible. It's more about personal preference and adapting to your group or dungeon mechanics. What I'm showing you now is my default class setup, but I do change a few things depending on the dungeon or comp. Let me walk you through the flex picks. Remove Corruption, a great utility pick, but if you don't need it in the dungeon, you can swap it for Killer Instincts for a bit more armor. Method Fair gives you a small absorb shield every time you use Bark Skin, nice for survivability. Phalanx Swiftness, plus 15 passive movement speed, super helpful for dodging or staying mobile. Improved Stampeding Roar, reduces the cooldown by 60 seconds, great for group mobility. Perfectly Owned Instinct, reduce well-owned instincts cooldown by 30 seconds, giving you more frequent defensive procs. Incapacitating Roar, an AoE stop on a 30-second cooldown, and Fluid Form, this one subtle but strong. It lets you automatically shift back into Boomkin form by casting Wrath or Starfire without using a global cooldown. The last one, Fluid Form, is actually a small DPS increase. Why? Because in Mythic Plus you will often shift into bear form to survive mechanics, and with this you can get right back into Boomkin form seamlessly with your next cast, saving time and globals. So yeah, mix and match these flex picks to suit your playstyle and the dungeon. Just make sure you're comfortable and you understand how the build fits your group. When it comes to stats, here is the general priority. Mastery is our top stats. It scales our damage across the board and is super valuable in all situations. Haste comes next, giving us faster casts and smoother gameplay. Then we have Versatility, which tends to be better for single target, and Crit can pull ahead in AoE heavy situations. That said, and this is super important, always sim your character. Stat weights can shift based on your gear, talents and content, so the best way to optimize is by running a sim. One more thing to keep in mind, you might notice you are going past the diminishing returns point on Mastery, and that's totally fine. Mastery is so strong for Balance Druid that it's often worth stacking even behind the DR cap, so don't stress if you're over it. Now let's talk about playstyle. At the basic level, it's simple. Use Star Surge for single target and Starfall when you have 2 or more targets. But like always, there are some exceptions. For example, in Mechagon after the third boss, it might be better to focus down one of them with Star Surge, even if it's an AoE pull. This helps your healer and your group survivability. Another example is the first boss in Dark Flame. There are a lot of ads, but your main targets are the boss and the cart. In that case, Star Surge is often the better pick. In general, you can also weave Star Surge and Starfall. Before we dive deeper into AoE and single target rotations, here are some core rules that apply to both. Use Fury of Elune on cooldown. If it's lined up with your cooldowns, cast it before using Incarnation. Use Warrior of Elune on cooldown unless your major CDs are coming up within 10 seconds. Don't overcap on Astral Power. Get to 3 stacks of Star-Lord as quickly as possible. If your Eclipse has less than 2 seconds left, cast Threat to enter the next Eclipse as soon as possible. And here is the big one. When you have less than 4 seconds on Eclipse and less than 70 Astral Power, start banking Astral Power. There are 2 reasons for this. The first one is, like I said earlier, you want to get 3 stacks of Star-Lord as fast as possible. The second one is because balance of all things. With this talent, when we enter an Eclipse, we have 20% more crit on Arcane and Nature spells, decreasing by 2% every 1 second. We want to spend Astral Power immediately after entering an Eclipse to get the most value from that crit window. Now for AoE situation. If you are assuming that the pack will live for more than 30 to 40 seconds, you should dot all targets before you pop your CDs. This is usually the case on high keys. On lower keys, the pack usually die quickly and it's not beneficial to dot all targets, so you should dot the high HP mobs and then pop your CDs. The way you dot your targets is with Moonfire. Thanks to Twin Moons, we can dot 2 targets with Moonfire per global, and then when the pack is gathered and stacked, you should use Sunfire to hit everything at once. Make sure your important targets have both Moonfire and Sunfire because of Waning Twilight, which gives you increased damage on enemies affected by 3 periodic effects. As a side note, on big pulls, sometimes you lose track on how many targets you have Moonfire and Sunfire. If you are not sure, I recommend using Plater add-on and use mod that highlights mob with Moonfire and Sunfire. Super helpful for dot maintenance. On single target, it's pretty straightforward. Keep Moonfire and Sunfire up at all times, use Fury of Elune, then pop your cooldowns, and of course, follow the same Astral Power management rules I mentioned earlier. Overall, for both AoE and single target, after you dot everything, you cast Fury of Elune if it's up and enter Eclipse or pop CDs. I'll go over more specific scenarios and advanced tips in the next section, so stick around, you don't want to miss those. Now, I want to give you 5 tips that I've learned along the way that will definitely help you squeeze out more damage and play more efficiently. I like to call this my MVTs, most valuable tips. Let's get into it. MVT number 1, we usually try to avoid overcapping Astral Power, but there are times when it's actually the right move. Take the first pull in Priory for example. It takes the tank a few seconds to gather everything, and even then you still need time to dot all mobs before popping your cooldown. During that window, yes, you might overcap on Astral Power, but that's fine. You want to have full Astral Power ready right before you hit your CDs to front load burst with Star Force. This is situational and you will learn with time when it's better to bank Astral Power versus when you should spend a little. MVT number 2. This ties into the first tip. Most of the time when your seeds are ready, you want to dot everything quickly and pop off. But if the pull takes too long to gather, it's often better to enter a fresh eclipse and all your cooldowns for a few seconds. Why? Because wasting your incarnation window to dot new mobs mean you're losing big damage potential. Set up first, then send it. MVT number 3. If you're playing Night Elf, here is a fun tech. While in combat with Trash, you can Shadow Meld mid-pull to trigger Nature's Grace, which gives you 2 Starfires with 40% reduced cast time. But keep these 3 things in mind. Sometimes you will need Shadow Meld defensively, so don't waste it. Don't use it right before Eclipse ends, since Nature's Grace triggers automatically then. And 3. Don't overlap it with Warrior of Elune, the effects don't stack and you will lose value. MVT number 4. If your cooldowns will be ready in the next 10 seconds or so, Old Warrior of Elune and use it during incarnation for max burst value. Just like before, don't overlap it with Nature's Grace and make sure to consume the 2 fast Starfires before pressing Warrior of Elune. It's all about lining everything for the highest damage window. MVT number 5. Always be casting even when moving. If you are on the move and don't have enough Astral Power for Star Surge or Starfall, don't just stand there, make use of it. Refresh your dots or cast Moonfire to reduce the cooldown of Fury of Elune, thanks to the Lunation passive from the Hero talent. Even small globals like this keep your damage rolling. And there you have it, 5 quick tips that will seriously improve your performance in Mythic Plus. I'll cover even more nuanced scenarios in the future, but if you start applying this now, you will feel the difference immediately. Stick around, the Trinkets section is coming up. Let's talk about Trinkets. Right now, your best Trinkets for Mythic Plus are House of Cards from One Armed Bandit and the Jug from Magzi. In some cases, those 2 are so strong that they will still outperform higher item level Trinkets. To give you an example, up until this week's reset, I was still using a normal House of Card and according to my sim, it was still my best Trinket. If you cannot get your hands on those, here are some solid alternatives. The Signet from Priory, Carved Blazicon Wax from Dark Flame Cleft, and Suspicious Energy Drink from Delphs. These are strong trinkets, but as always, make sure to sim yourself. Your best combo can change based on your gear and stat distribution. Before we move on, I just want to mention Eye of Kezan from Galowix. You might have seen people using this trinket, and while it can be decent in raids, it's not a good pick for Mythic Plus. Don't get baited just because someone else is running it. Overall, Balance is amazing pick for Mythic Plus and I personally really like it. I hope this helped you get a better understanding of how to gear, build and play your Boomkin in keys, whether you're pushing keys or just starting out. If you find the guide helpful, please drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss any future content. Got any questions or want to share your own tips? Leave a comment, I'm always happy to chat and help out. Good luck out there in your keys, may your Starfalls be juicy and your eclipses always the line. Thank you for watching, I'll catch you in the next one, peace.